The Buffalo Bills lose in heartbreaking fashion in the playoffs once again to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sharing my immediate thoughts in the aftermath of the game today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, the Buffalo Bills fell to the Kansas City Chiefs 27-24, and the season is over. Obviously, a disappointing way for it to end. The Bills scratched and clawed to earn the right for this opportunity, and unfortunately, they let it slip right through their fingers. A very, very frustrating end to the season. And so on today's podcast, I want to reflect on this game, and I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot written down. Normally, I come into these podcasts with a bunch of notes, a lot of different things that I want to make sure that I say. And this time, I just have some things written down that will kind of keep me on track, but not necessarily a ton of notes. And so I'm not really sure exactly how this is going to go, but I want to share the most important things that are on my mind with you today. And as a podcaster, it's not always easy to have the right words in these types of moments. But I can say that we've had a lot of big moments together in the 5 years that I've done this podcast. And there's been several playoff exits, right? Every year there's been a playoff exit that we've had to talk about. We've had disappointing regular season losses. We've had big moments too, right? I mean, whether it's Josh Allen signing a contract extension, landing some big players, right? Trading for Stefon Diggs or, big wins. Like we've had those too. And whenever I find myself in these big moments, if you will, I always just remind myself to be honest and tell you how I feel. And so that's what I'm going to do today to the best of my ability. And so in this opening segment, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you how I feel. Then I want to talk about some of the key dynamics in the elimination game, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about what's next. But how do I feel? Well, I think there's some different emotions that I have. Number one is disappointed. I'm disappointed that the Buffalo Bills weren't able to win this football game. And it's such a great opportunity that they had, a great opportunity that they earned to bring Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to Highmark Stadium and play in front of Bills Mafia. And unfortunately, they weren't able to win the game. And that's disappointing, especially because you felt like they had their chances to do it. You just couldn't get stops defensively at all, right? Too many explosive plays were given up. Offensively, you certainly had a good formula, but your down-the-field passing offense was completely missing. Special teams problems, right? We'll talk more about those specifically, but you feel like you were in position to do something that you wanted to do so bad, right? So bad. You wanted to send the Kansas City Chiefs home. And instead, for the third time in 4 seasons, they send you home. So, yeah, I think the first thing that I feel is disappointed that this opportunity that the Bills wanted so badly, that we wanted so badly, it was an opportunity that unfortunately fell right through their fingers. And so, yeah, number one, I feel very disappointed. I think that's the prevailing thought in my head. Wanted this one bad. Didn't get it. The second thing that I feel is grateful. I feel grateful to have watched a very exciting football team this season that was 6-6 and went on a big time run and put themselves in position for this game. They won a playoff game. They were in the divisional round for the 4th consecutive season. They've won at least one playoff game for the 4th consecutive season. The only team in the NFL not named the Buffalo Bills that can say that is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know that it's starting to feel a bit empty, right, for a lot of Bills fans, and that the divisional round exit isn't good enough. I understand that. But we are still in the good days, folks. These are the good days of being a Bills fan. It's been a long time since the Bills had this type of quarterback and have been to these types of stages. Now, you want the result to be different, there's no question. But only 4 teams in the entire NFL can say that they had a better season than the Buffalo Bills. 4, that's it. 4. And only one team ends the season happy. Unfortunately, not the Bills this year. But only 4 teams can say that they had a better season than the Buffalo Bills. And so it's cool to continue to be at the top of the NFL, near the top of the NFL. It's cool to win the AFC East for a 4th consecutive season. And I'm grateful for that. This is the type of success that I really wanted to have as a fan of the team. And yeah, I want more. Don't get me wrong. Like, don't get it twisted. I want more. I don't want to get bounced by the Chiefs. I don't. But I'm also grateful to be a fan of one of the best teams in the NFL that has a wide open Super Bowl window and a special quarterback. Only 4 teams can say they had a better season than the Buffalo Bills this year. And it was a heck of a journey. It was a heck of a journey from 6-6 to 11-6 to a playoff win against the Steelers to earning the right to have Kansas City to come to your place. And unfortunately, you couldn't win the game. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be a fan of one of the best teams in the NFL. Number 3 is I feel frustrated. You kind of ask yourself, like, when's it going to be our turn? And that's a pretty broad statement. When's it going to be our turn? Like, when's it going to be our turn to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, right? When's it going to be our turn to end their season? When's it our turn to get back to the Super Bowl, right? When's it our turn to win the Super Bowl? It's frustrating that we don't know the answer to that question, and it won't be this year. That's the one thing that we do know is that it's not this year. And that's frustrating, right? To feel like you have a team that has the capacity to do it, a quarterback that can do it, and you're left wondering, well, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? I certainly understand that thought process as well. When's it going to be our turn? When is it going to be different? And number 4 is I feel optimistic. I'm optimistic about the future of this football team because Josh Allen and some of the young talent that I really like and some of the opportunities that are going to be there this offseason to build. So, yeah, I think the range of emotions that I'm feeling are disappointed, grateful, frustrated, and optimistic. We'll build upon that a little bit more in the next segment. In the next segment, I want to talk about what this elimination game revealed to us about the Buffalo Bills. So stick with me. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring's easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats right now and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy, and they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker and more simple. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free Terms and conditions apply. All right, folks. One of the things that Brandon Beane said several years ago, actually, it was after the playoff loss to Houston. He said something, and it's really stuck with me, and it's something that I try to apply whenever necessary. And what he said was, in the game where you are eliminated in the playoffs, right? Your playoff elimination game, which happens to all but one team. In that game, you find out what your biggest problems are. Like the things that plagued you all season long will be fully manifested in that game, right? It reveals what your biggest issues were. And so now that we've had a playoff elimination game, I think it's fair to look at the reasons the Bills lost that game, and I think you can tie them to the biggest season problems that the Bills have had this season. And I think it's very straightforward. Like I have a lot of convictions about what I'm about to say. Because to me, the reasons that the Bills lost this game are so simple to identify. So simple. I'll give you the list of 4 things and then I'll talk about them. Number 1, and again, this is number 1. I'm not sure that any one of these is more important than the other. This is just the order that I have them written down. Number 1 is lack of down the field wide receiver talent. Number 2 is special teams. Number 3 is defensive injuries. And number 4 is defensive line impact. I think those were your biggest problems. Why'd you lose to Kansas City? It's those 4 things. What were your issues all season long? Those 4 things. So let's talk about it. Number 1 is lack of down the field wide receiver talent. The Bills had a very specific game plan offensively, and I think it was absolutely the right plan offensively. If you paid attention to our coverage throughout the course of the week previewing the game, I thought it was very much an opportunity to run the football and for Josh Allen to take advantage of what the defense gave him because they couldn't take away everything because of the evolution of the run game, the evolution of Josh Allen, the runner, the evolution of James Cook. Like there was something that they couldn't take away. And I thought Josh Allen played a great game. I thought he played a really good game. And I thought the offensive game plan was the right formula to win. But what the problem is that you didn't have any explosive plays. And it's not that they didn't try to have explosive plays. They just didn't connect on any of them. 4 legitimate opportunities to make plays down the field, and the Bills didn't make a single one of them. And you know whose fault it wasn't? Josh Allen. Josh Allen put the ball in positions for receivers to make plays down the field, and they just didn't make the plays. 2 of them, Trent Sherfield. The first, yeah, it's tight coverage, but Trent's got him leveraged at the catch point vertically. Josh Allen puts the ball perfectly, and Trent Sherfield shows no ball skills, no ability to go get the ball. And I know that kind of that one arm was pulled back. I don't care. Play through the contact and make the play, or at least force a penalty. Do anything other than barely try to catch the ball with your left hand. Terrible ball skills on that play. And then Trent Sherfield again had another opportunity to make a catch down the field. A wonderful throw from Josh Allen. And it goes right through his hands and he can't catch the ball. Also, Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs, was it Justin Reid, a friggin' safety in coverage on him? It was a play action shot play late in the game. I don't know what Josh put it, 60, 70 yards in the air, and it goes right through Stefon Diggs' hands. So, yeah, I know that there's some frustration that, well, this seems like kind of a conservative game plan, a lot of throws behind the line of scrimmage, running the ball. Where were the explosive plays? Well, they didn't make the plays. They didn't make the plays. They were there to be made. Josh Allen made great throws. Trent Sherfield and Stefon Diggs couldn't make plays down the field when they had the opportunity to do so. And I do think that this is a game where you did miss Gabe Davis. And you guys know that I'm not a big Gabe Davis fan, but this was the type of game where he could have really helped you. because the matchup that is the most favorable is your outside wide receiver 2 against their rotating cornerback situation of Jalen Watson and Josh Williams. And I think you saw Trent Sherfield show you exactly what the problem was there. Like, Gabe is good against the Chiefs because he can win that matchup. He can get that vertical leverage and he can make the play. You just don't have the receivers to make those plays. And I'm not sitting here like pounding the table to re-sign Gabe Davis, but Trent Sherfield couldn't make those plays. Stefon Diggs didn't make that play. And so your explosive plays were missing, like very calculated, well-timed opportunities to push the ball down the field. And your guys didn't make the catch. So, yeah, the Bills are going to need to find some down-the-field wide receiver talent. Need to find some separators. Now, obviously, we'll talk a lot about that in the coming weeks, but lack of down-the-field wide receiver talent was absolutely a problem for the Bills in this game. Number 2 is special teams. Special teams blunders all season long, right? You lose in week 1 to the Jets because of a punt return for a touchdown. In overtime, the Denver game, Tyler Bass, wildly inconsistent all season long. Punting had a lull in the middle of the season. I know Sam Martin finished on a high note in the regular season. I know that Deontay Hardy had the big return against Miami, but he didn't have anything dynamic in the return game. Your ability to cover kicks was not like we've seen in the past, right? Special teams problems all season long. Well, what shows up against the Chiefs? Tyler Bass from 44 yards to tie the game pushes the ball right. And Tyler Bass has had a bad season, and he's had a dreadful postseason. Dreadful. He missed 3 field goals. 1 from 27, blocked from 49, where he couldn't get the ball above basically his own offensive line, and 44 yards with the season on the line. He couldn't come through. 3 missed kicks in the postseason. Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker, he's 35 of 37 on the season. He missed 2 all year. Tyler Bass misses 3 in the playoffs. I watched Chris Boswell last week. The Steelers kicker has never missed in the playoffs. 90% made field goals like 5 different seasons in his career. And Tyler Bass is a top 5 paid kicker in the NFL. You can't have seasons like this. You can't have postseasons like this. Special teams are a problem all season long. And I know that a lot of people are saying, well, fire the coordinator, fire Matthew Smiley. Last year, he had the number 1 special teams units in the NFL. I don't know. Like, maybe it is his problem. I don't know. Wasn't good enough. But especially Tyler Bass. Like, I said to my brother, like, you probably felt that. Did anyone have confidence that he was going to make that kick from 44 yards? Did anybody have confidence? I didn't. I knew he was going to miss it. And he did. And then, like, even the field goals that he was making down the stretch is like they're erratic. Nothing's pure. It's veering off to the right. Like, just terrible. And Sam Martin is out there on one leg, like clearly not able to punt. Like, it wound up not costing the Bills. But whatever process decision-making led you to thinking that Sam Martin was the right punter for this game, like, I don't know what to tell you, because obviously he couldn't do it. We'll get to the fake punt in a minute. Number 3 is defensive injuries. The Bills couldn't get a stop. They're giving up explosive plays left and right for like the majority of the game. Chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. And unfortunately, just like AJ Klein wasn't up to it. And I respect what AJ Klein has given this team, but Andy Reid feasted on AJ Klein. One-on-one with Travis Kelce down the field on corner routes. That's a mismatch. AJ Klein getting beat up in the box against the run. But even Rasul Douglas trying to play hurt, you could tell he wasn't right. I mean, you're in this game at linebacker, you're down Milano, you're down Terrel Bernard. Like, how cool would that have been to see an entire season of those guys together? Instead, we get 4 games, and then Terrel Bernard's not even available in this game. Like, you have 2 dynamic matchup linebackers. You don't have them for the game. And you don't have them for pretty much the entire season together. So you're down Milano, and Terrel Bernard, your best 2 linebackers, in addition to Balen Spector. At corner, you're down Trey White, Christian Benford. Rasul Douglas is trying to play hurt. It's hard, right? Like the team, like, credit to Sean McDermott and company because they kind of figured it out down the stretch defensively, but then it all came right back for this game, right? All the goodwill that you had. Okay, a healthy Rasul Douglas. You figured out with Terrel Bernard and Tyrel Dodson. Doesn't matter, right? Because it goes right back to where you were in the middle of the season where the defense was terrible in this game because, once again, you just have too many injuries. Couldn't get a stop. And then number 4 was defensive line impact. The defensive line certainly had its moments this year. Ed Oliver, Leonard Floyd had his moments, Rousseau, Epinesa. But in the postseason, like, once again, in this elimination game, you're left wondering, like, where was the defensive line? And I know that there's a complementary component to, like, the coverage in the front, right? And so, like, your back 7 is depleted. You've got slugs all over the place, right? Douglas is already slow and can't run in this game. Klein's can't run. Aging safeties. So I want to be disappointed in the defensive line because they didn't have better pass rush, but you're also not covering, right? That has to work together. But I still was looking for more defensive line impact. I mean, like, terrible offensive tackles. It doesn't feel like the Bills can make them pay for that at all during the game. Daquan Jones, Ed Oliver, 0 pressures in the game, according to Next Gen Stats. Your best play, Greg, is literally the second play of the game for the Chiefs on offense. Greg Rousseau cleanly beats Donovan Smith, has Patrick Mahomes dead to right, can't get him out. Mahomes spins out. He finds Rashee Rice for a chunk gain. It's like, so yeah, like, your defensive line impact wasn't good enough. So in an elimination game, you find out what your biggest problems are. They're revealed. They're the reason why you lose. And I think it's absolutely true. And I think these were problems for the most part all season long. Lack of down the field wide receiver talent, special teams, defensive injuries, and then defensive line impact. I don't know that was true for the entire season, but in this game where you needed it to be a lot better, it wasn't. All right, we're going to talk about what's next here in just a second here, a little high-level conversation about the future here for the Bills and even some comments on the podcast, so be sure to stick with me. But folks, the NFL playoffs are here, but there's still plenty of time to get in on the action over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app, super easy to navigate. I love it. And there's so many different ways that you can bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. They have a parlay hub. They have the spreads, over-unders, player props, and more. So check it out. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I want to talk about what's next, but I feel like I should say something about the fake punt. I know that this is a big conversation point. I feel if you want to say that the game sort of unraveled after the fake punt, you're right. It did. If you want to say something along the lines of, well, is your best opportunity to get 5 yards, keeping Josh Allen in the game and asking him to go get the yards, or a fake punt to Damar Hamlin. All right, you can convince me that that's true. Yeah, let Josh Allen get the 5 yards. Do I hate the decision? I really don't. I really don't hate it. It's aggressive. Sean McDermott was aggressive all game. And I think he was going for the element of surprise. They hadn't run a fake punt all season long. Going for the element of surprise. It didn't work. Crap, right? Like, crap. Did things unravel from there? Yeah, I mean, sort of. The Bills wind up very fortunate to have McCole Hardman fumble throughout the back of the end zone. Great play by Jordan Poyer there. So it wind up not costing you. But yeah, the game never really felt the same from that moment. So was it the wrong decision? Yeah, because it didn't work. But do I understand it? Yeah, I do. So that's that on the fake punt. So what's next here? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are next. First of all, the podcast, Locked On Bills, is still daily. We are still a daily podcast. Monday through Friday, we will have an episode for you here all off season long. All off season long. I love the off season. It's where I get a chance to be really creative, develop fun show concepts. So don't keep us in your routine. Keep us in your routine because the off season's really fun. And I mean, this is going to be my 6th off season here. I've been through this before. Like I know how to make the Buffalo Bills a 365-day-a-year conversation, and I invite you to join me for the ride. We're going to have a lot of fun here on this podcast. We're going to get into our performance review. We're going to really evaluate the season. We'll get ready for free agency, the draft, and we'll get ready for 2024. The Bills have the 28th pick in the 2024 NFL draft. We'll get ready for that. Free agent. We're going to do all this stuff here every day. We'll have some fun, nostalgic things, right? We'll reflect back on, things even beyond this season. We'll do some deep dives on specific players. We're going to have a fun offseason. I promise you that. But I think the Bills, right? Like Locked On Bills, we're here daily. That's never going to change. The Bills got some stuff to figure out too. And I think it's really 2 things. Number 1 is your coordinators. Literally all of them. We'll start with the special teams coordinator, Matthew Smiley. I think you have to ask yourself questions and see, like, operationally, how much of your miscues on special teams were because of Matthew Smiley. And Sean McDermott's going to have to assess that and make a call there. Is it a situation where Matthew Smiley is unfit to do the job? It's tough, right? Because one season, number 1 special teams in the NFL. Next season, probably a bottom 5, bottom 8 special teams unit. You certainly don't love the year-over-year trajectory of that. So you got to ask yourself questions there and figure out, okay, what's wrong with our special teams, and is it Matthew Smiley's fault? And if it's Matthew Smiley's fault, is it a problem that is bigger than, like, not fixable and you have to put another coach in there to get it done or not? Like, that's what you got to figure out. You got to figure out your offensive coordinator. And if Joe Brady's the offensive coordinator that you want to move forward with Josh Allen, I am very much in favor of that. But I think you got to do your due diligence. You need to interview and do your due diligence there. And I know Joe Brady had an interview this past week with the Atlanta Falcons for their head coaching vacancy. So this could be a situation where you bring Joe Brady back. Let's say that he's your offensive coordinator next year. If you have a great season offensively, this is not the first time he's had interviews, right? He interviewed for the Texans head coaching job a few years back. And so I think you need to have a decision here that is mindful of the possibility that Joe Brady could be someone's head coach after 2024. And so not only do you need to get your OC in place for next year, but you might want to start thinking about like a succession plan there. And then defensive coordinator. I thought Sean McDermott did a good job as a defensive coordinator this year. But is that a role he wants to continue with? Or has he been grooming Bobby Babich for this opportunity? Sort of feels that way. So Sean's going to have to ask himself some questions about, the future of that defensive coordinator role. And if it's something he wants to continue doing, if it's a John Butler opportunity, if it's a Bobby Babich opportunity, you got to figure out their coordinators. And then number 2 with the roster, I think you have to take this opportunity to get younger and cheaper. And I know the Bills have a long list of expiring contracts. Folks, we're going to talk about all of it very thoroughly in the coming days here on this podcast. Trust me. But generally speaking, I think the Bills need to take this opportunity to get younger and cheaper. And that's going to mean saying no to extensions on 30-plus-year-old expiring contracts. I love Micah Hyde. I love Daquan Jones. I love Leonard Floyd. But I'm not going to stress over north of 30 year-old players on expiring contracts and feeling like you have to bring them back. I'm not going to be afraid for this team to get younger and cheaper in some spots. There's some things that you have to look at there. And again, we're going to talk about all of it. Every single player I'm going to put under the microscope. We're going to talk about the dynamics of their season, their future, their contract. We're going to talk about every single thing. But generally speaking, I think the Bills need to get younger and cheaper in a lot of spots. And I think that's something that Brandon Beane needs to cling to this offseason to help maximize his opportunity here to regroup and replenish this roster to continuously have deep postseasons runs with Josh Allen at quarterback. So busy offseason is coming. We'll be here for you every single step of the way, breaking it all down, previewing everything. So make sure that you stay subscribed, make us part of your daily routine. We'll be working hard, I promise you, and we'll have some good conversations all year long about this football team. So as always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Folks, I know it wasn't the result that we were hoping for. I know that people are hurting. They're frustrated. I get it. I get it. I am too. But we're still in the good days of Buffalo Bills football. There's still plenty of hope for the future. Josh Allen is still our quarterback. And it's going to be exciting to figure out how they can build around him again this offseason to gear up for another run, because that's what you do. That's what you do. The rest of the playoffs are going to play out. But for the Buffalo Bills, it's all about how do we build around Josh Allen to position ourselves to go further in 2024. And that's what we're going to do here on this podcast along with Brandon Beane. So again, as always, I kindly ask you share, subscribe, rate, review. Enjoy, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.